The documentary I'm about to present is an investigation on tomatoes, a story between Europe and America, full of mistakes and misunderstandings. Our view on tomatoes has evolved through time. The Occident has eliminated cultures coming from America. And it's only just now, 5 centuries later, that we discover that we miss the knowledge of those civilizations, and it might be too late. In 1492, the Spanish, trying to find a new alternative to the Portuguese route, decided to cross the Atlantic in order to gain the Indies. They thought they had reached their goal when they realized that those lands don't really match those described by Marco Polo 2 centuries earlier. The inhabitants were different from those in the stories. Animals and plants didn't look anything like what they expect to see. In front of them, the Aztec people stared with wonder. They have been waiting for 200 years the return of Quetzalcoatl. The Aztec Empire was born after the decay of the Toltec Empire, which corresponds to the departure of Quetzalcoatl, the fair sovereign who became a god and was represented as a feathered snake. For 2 centuries, the Aztec civilization developed super fast while waiting for the god's return. Quetzalcoatl was expected the year 1 Acatl from the east, where he had left by the sea. In 1519, Hernán Cortés and his men landed in Mexico from the east to conquer the Aztec Empire. 1519 is the year 1 Acatl in the cyclic Aztec calendar. Unlike any inhabitants of Mexico, Quetzalcoatl had a fair skin and a beard. Cortés was Spanish, white, with a beard. The Aztec people were fierce warriors. When they subject a neighbor, they did not force their own belief on them. They would rather adopt the gods of the losers, at least those who would fill a gap. They would integrate the Aztec culture into that of the subjected nation. It might explain the rapid expansion of their society. Aztec people believed that gods were mortal. If they come to die, the world will disappear with them. To keep them alive, their priests would sacrifice the men they had captured during the Flower Wars. Quetzalcoatl was against human sacrifices. His return would mean the end of the world. The Spanish were amazed by Tenochtitlan, the capital of the empire, similar to Venice with its canals. As they marched to the center of the city, they discovered the corpse piled up at the bottom of the pyramids. In conquering the Aztecs, the Spanish imposed a single god, burned the books, and destroyed completely the city of Tenochtitlan. During the following century, 97% of the locals were killed by violence or diseases. The most efficient ethnocide in history. The Aztec Empire disappeared faster than it appeared. It left behind diseases, so far benign, which bear secrets and, in the hands of Europeans, would become mortal. Syphilis, gold, and tomato. The tomato crossed the Atlantic along with gold and syphilis. Mid-16th century, it could be found in the monasteries of southern Spain, where it was used as a decorative plant. From there, it went to Napoli, which was then under Spanish domination. The Arabs, chased out of Spain, took it with them to North Africa. Following its descent to the south, it could be found with the Bambara people from Senegal, Mali and Burkina Faso, where it was associated to blood, and so to women's fertility. The Aztec used the tomato as a medicine plant. Mixed with butter, they would use it to calm the pain provoked by hemorrhoids. Metaphorically, tomatl means perfection, the lack of default. Europeans considered it as a poison. In their imagination at the time of witch hunts, they would be given evil characteristics. It came to France through Provence, where, associated with the planet Venus, it was given aphrodisiac virtues. It was called Apple of Love. It started to be eaten in order to encourage sex. In the north, fear of tomato remained. It was only in 1790 that it managed to settle, imported by the Federals of Marseille during the French Revolution. Since, it started to be eaten profusely. Raw, in sauce, dry, stuffed, in soups, in pies, in jams, in salads, in gratin, in ratatouille, in tarte. Europeans went to America to convert and subject the infidels, to force the word of their unique god, their tongue, their culture, and the organization linked to the Occidental religious order. And yet, the Aztec gold was used to create many objects for Catholics. It can be found at the heart of cathedrals on the old continent. Syphilis killed countless numbers of Europeans for 4 centuries before a cure could be found. Nowadays, the tomato can be found everywhere. It is the most eaten vegetable. It represents a third of the world's cultures. China is the first producer with 25% of the world production. The tomato is everywhere. For many years, agronomical research labs tried to isolate the tomato's DNA sequence. DNA is a molecule found in all living cells. It carries heredity since it's partly transmitted during reproduction. All the cells of one living being carry the same DNA sequence, which is unique and specific to each of us. The DNA structure is formed by 4 elements organized in pairs in a long spiral: adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. DNA research for tomato only led to isolate 2 of those 4 elements and a short incomprehensible suite. Even more surprising, every tomato, no matter their species, carries the same sequence: AC, AT, and then the incomprehensible suite. Recent studies show that the last component corresponds to a protein so far unknown in which exists in no other living being, the liperichromine. Unlike the other elements, it is isolated and odd, so it gives AC, AT, L for the tomato's genetic code. Acatl, the year of Quetzalcoatl's return, the year of the end of the world. The tomato, all the tomatoes, since they all share the same genetic code, are they one sole individual? Is it the same individual who came from Mexico with the Spanish and never ceased to develop and colonize the planet? The Aztec people disappeared. They left us the tomato. On December 21, 2012, will begin the next year 1 Acatl.
Tomatl, Acatl,